Hey guys, so today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, as the learning resources on the web increases and gain more quality, will the quality of self-taught programmers also go up? So let's get into it. Well, that is a very good question. I would say yes and no. I would say that it depends a little bit. You see, the problem with being self-taught is not necessarily that there are no resources for you to learn how to do things. It is that you basically, it's very similar to going out into the jungle by yourself, completely by yourself. And then your goal is basically to make it to the other side of that jungle. And as you walk through, if you don't know any better, you are likely going to get killed, or you're going to at least get into like different paths and like circle around, and you might go from in one direction and finally just make it all the way over to the other side. But it's more likely that you're just going to get lost and like go off in a completely different direction than what is required in order for you to get to whatever end goal that you're looking for, right? But if you have a guide, someone who has actual experience, they can actually lead you onto the right paths to take you to where you need to be. And that's something that unfortunately every single self-taught person lacks for most of the time. They simply don't have, I mean, without someone with that experience and who has actually taken the time to structure learning materials that will actually teach them the things that are relevant for work experience purposes, it's very likely that they will simply learn a bunch of some things. Of course, some of it's going to be relevant, but it's also the chance of them learning things that are not considered to be the right things it's very, very high. And that has nothing to do with the learning resources, with one exception. My favorite example between like where this makes a real difference is if we look at the adoption of C++ versus, say, JavaScript. Now, JavaScript has probably the largest amount of learning resources of any programming language on the web. There's so much of it that you can get answers to pretty much everything, while languages such as C++, this is the sort of language where you have to work a little bit for it. Scala is another example of a language where you don't really have access to as much learning material and examples and bloggers and community people that contribute as you have in JavaScript. And that makes it harder or less accessible to learn this sort of thing. So I think that that's the sort of thing that can improve by having better learning resources. I don't see that happening because different languages have different communities and they focus on different things, right? So yeah, that's I would say pretty much. I don't see this happening. I actually had a subscriber who asked this question regarding, you know, being self-taught, and she had worked for, like, she had been self-taught and, well, done this for a few years. And basically she was telling me that she had issues finding a job because she didn't have the experience that a lot of companies didn't, like, kind of turned her down for positions because she didn't have any experience working with a team, and she didn't have any experience working with like within the right sphere of things. And the way that I described it is that it's not that you don't know how to write software. It's just you've gone through the jungle, you've made it through to some point, you've landed somewhere within within the jungle, but you haven't taken the path that puts you in the position where most people would consider that they can trust your skills. I can give you another analogy, which is that you could sit down today and you could teach yourself medicine. You could just self-study until you know medicine so well that you can heal people. But it's unlikely that a hospital is going to hire you as just another doctor, because they will not have confidence in your skills because you haven't taken the official path to gone through the official channels, right? And this is pretty much what it comes down to. The education system should be designed in order to just give you a very well-paved way to get to the sort of experiences that you need in order to feel confident in that you know the things that are relevant for this profession. Like it's if we take the medicine example again, it's like going to a witch doctor with the health problem, or going to a doctor. If you're depending on your health problem, the witch doctor might, or the shaman or whatever, might recommend eating healthy or exercising, but the doctor is going to give you the same answer. It's just that the doctor has a much more in-depth understanding. It's very likely that person has a deeper understanding of medicine in a more holistic fashion than what the witch doctor has, and it's a very similar sort of problem that. It doesn't matter if the resources are out there. What matters is the path that you take, like the things that you actually pick up and the things that you learn as you go through. Because when you get out on the other side and you have experience, if you have learned a bunch of stuff that isn't really relevant, because there's more stuff around than just the stuff that is going to be very relevant, that's going to be relevant for job purposes, then although you know some stuff, you may not know all the things that you need in order to be considered to just be a professional in today's software development industry. So what I want you to take away from this is that although it is the learning resources get better, I don't think that that's going to equal that the self-taught developers are going to get better, simply because of that fundamental problem. When you start your path through this jungle of learning resources and information, you have no idea where you're going. And all you kind of do is that you Google around, or like you go out on the internet and you try your best to like go about it, right? But that is a less efficient way of learning the things that you need, as opposed to having someone who can guide you kind of directly through it. And the risk that you run is that you end up in, a sort of this, wise man or shaman or a witch doctor versus doctor type of situation, where you know some medicine for sure, but you don't have the same skill set that is required to work at a hospital. It's a very similar sort of problem, and I don't think that's going to go away even if we have the best learning resources. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. Have a great day.